It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Hello. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman, as always. How are ya? We got Wayne McFarland here today. Wayne is an author. His book is called Tales of the Day. I think Wayne's life epitomizes that phrase. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. He tells us some great stories, some very funny stories, of adventures that he seemed to have just stumbled upon, or that came his way. Somebody once said, and I forget who it was, that life is just a series of boulders being thrown at you, and if you're lucky, you dodge them until you live to a ripe old age, and then finally one gets you. I think that's about right. So Wayne's had a lot of boulders, and he's dodged them, and he's still doing all right. It's a great interview, very funny. Stay tuned for it. Please check out our video edition. We've got one up now. Our special guest on the video edition is Peter Abrams, who's turning into a semi-regular on this show, but I love having Peter on the show. He's great, a lot of fun. Check that out. It's up on YouTube now and on Facebook. And with that, we will be right back with Wayne McFarland.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records. And it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, S-T-U-A-R-T, Epps, E-P-P-S, at talk, T-A-L-K, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents. such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
The show's about to start!
I'm coming as fast as I can.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Wayne McFarland. Hi, Wayne. How are you?
Hey, Doug, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Where are you calling from?
Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm late of Los Angeles, but out here in God's country now.
Oh, okay, good for you. I'm not a big L.A. fan myself either. The only nice thing about L.A. is the weather. That really is it.
Yeah, it's
true.
Yeah, the weather's great. Well, we lived there for a long time, and aside from an occasional earthquake and the place burning down to the ground, LA is great. Although I will say, everybody bitches about the traffic, but it really has gotten worse. I mean, we were back there for a visit. We've only been gone a couple of years, and we commuted for years, typical LA experience, right? And we went back there, and I swear to you, Doug, it's like rush hour 24/7 now.
Yeah, the last time I was there, I mean, the only time you could drive was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And
well, that's gone now.
I don't get there very often, so it's just as well.
Where do you hang your hat? 702, is that Nevada?
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Yes!
What's funny about Las Vegas?
Nothing. I just, I put a show in there once, and Pawn Stars is one of my favorite shows, even though it's staged. What can I tell you?
Oh, Pawn Stars. Yeah, that was a good... Is that still on?
I think so. One of the cast died, but I think they're still milking that cow. But it was great fun. It was great fun.
Yeah, I mean, the old man died, right?
Yeah.
And then one of them went to jail or something. Didn't he get busted for, I forget for what, but something.
I hesitate to speculate.
Yeah, I forget what it was. I don't know if it was drugs or if I can't remember. But anyways, so let's talk about you. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background here, because it looks like you were a sales and marketing guy, yeah?
Yeah, well, I did a lot of things over the years and got involved with the entertainment business and stuff. And then my partner and I, my partner being my wife of many years now, she's the one with the PhD in molecular biology. And Doug, my plane doesn't fly up there. I am, however, a living example of the fact you can marry above your station. I'm living proof it can be done. So anyway, we had a software company for a while then, and we sold that bad boy here a couple of years ago. And I've always loved to read. So I've loved biographies and memoirs, and so I really started focusing on reading a lot of them. And Doug, I gotta tell you, most memoirs really suck. It's just amazing how bad they are, and they're almost all cut from the same cloth, kind of on the order of, I stood with a square jaw and a crooked smile but straight teeth, and I gazed at the horizon and I said, there lies my destiny. Oh, man. I mean, life doesn't work like that, right? So I got to thinking about it, and I thought, I got involved with a lot of weird stuff during my life, and most of it just kind of happened. I mean, it just sort of, that's why I said, life-changing events under the heading of oops, because in real life, that's pretty much how it goes. I mean, I suspect, what you're doing today and the place where you are is, if not unplanned, you were led there by a series of events that just kind of happened during life, and that's the way it is with everybody. I'll write a memoir, and it'll be full of things like the day we pitched the loan shark, and that was in Las Vegas, I might add, or the day we roped a bear, or the day we lost 10 grand at the Hollywood sign. Little chapters, that are all standalone. And when I did that, publishers went crazy. You're nuts. Nobody's going to buy this. You got to have a start and a narrative arc and a finish and trauma along the way and whatever. And I just thought, well, maybe, but I'm not good at making stuff up. And I have to say, in our 154-character world, Doug, the reception of the book's been gratifyingly good. So that's how it all came about.
Well, how long has the book been out?
Well, it's been out about a year now. And, I was asked the other day, here comes the totally shameless plug, Tales from the Day, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I was asked the other day, because I struggled really finding a good route to get the word out. And I was asked, if you were going to advise a new author, what would you tell them to do? And I'd tell them, go on the Douglas Coleman Show. I mean, go on podcasts and broadcasters. These are the people that are doing something, that are building an audience, and, that's what you need to do. So there's both my plug and my nod of approval.
Well, thank you for that. The interesting thing, having a radio show and a podcast, and you being a marketing guy, maybe you can shed some light on this. If you're an author, if you're a musician with a song out, if you're a filmmaker with a new film to promote, there are many, many avenues for that person to get the word out. There are not very many avenues for somebody like me to promote my show.
It's really, really tough, the explosion of media. In fact, I just launched a second book. Here comes another shameless plug, called You're an Author, Don't Get Hustled. Because of the very thing you're talking about, Doug, there's, if you're producing a radio show, for example, or a podcast, you'll get besieged. I'm sure you have been by people saying, hey, Doug, just write us a check for a few $100 or a few $1,000 and we'll make you famous. And they're all just trying to scam you.
Yeah.
So it's really, really tough. And for building, an audience for a podcast in particular, I think probably, I don't normally advise social media just because, it tends to be a way to fatten the ego and slim the wallet. But getting the word out to followers on the various social media, because once people find you and like you, particularly media, broadcasting, the word kind of spreads virally. But getting that going, turning that wheel, man, it's tough. And anybody doing what you're doing needs to know that. Well, you can attest to that.
Well, exactly, yeah. And, I mean, there isn't really a PR company that wants to take on what I'm doing. There's, like I said, there's thousands of them for film or for music or for books or for authors. What's interesting about this show is we've been doing it for 5 years, and the word spread through the industry that this was a good show. So I'm working with PR people, most of them in LA, who send me really great clients, film producers, filmmakers, musicians, actors. I get all those people through PR companies who have said, oh, go on the Douglas Coleman Show. It's a good show. But to try to drum up more listeners is a whole nother baby, because social media is about it. That's about what we've got, and we promote on Instagram.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
And I would contact a company called Send, SEND, to Press, Send to Press. And they're a press release company, and the owner is there. Hang on a second. And he is really great, and they get big play. I mean, the cost for them to send out a press release of who you are and what you've got and so forth is very low. And I mean, that's the only other thing I use, except for, to try and get on shows like yours. And man, I get covered in the big Broadway outfit and some others, and they are really fantastic. So for you and your listeners, and now I'll tell the owner that he really owes me. Hang on a second. His name is Chris Simmons, and that's Send to Press, which is, you can email him at cs@neotrope, neotrope.com. But you can find him online too at Send to Press. Chris is an old war dog. I mean, he really knows what he's doing. So I would recommend to you or any of your audience, if they want to start building coverage and get things written up about them in publications and other places, online, that really have some punch, Chris can deliver. If you talk to him, tell him he owes me.
Absolutely. I have a feeling that my producer, John Morgan, is going to be on that right away. So, let's see what he comes up with. Let's do a couple of things from your book. Your book is called Tales from the Day, available at Amazon.com. And you've got a whole list.
Bless you.
You got a whole list. Well, that's why you're here, isn't it? To promote your book,
What's that? Yeah, well, I love it. Thank you.
All right. So I've found a couple of these, a lot of them rather funny, but let's cover a couple of them, give people a little taste of what is in your book. The day I was... How about one that happened in Las Vegas, Doug? Sorry to interrupt. Well, okay. We'll get to that one. Let me do the two that I've got highlighted here. And then you do the Las Vegas one, all right? So I think we got time for three.
Perfect.
All right. The first one, the day I was saved by Mickey Mouse.
Well, that's when I first made a break from the Midwest, a little farm in the Midwest. And all this stuff that you read or hear about the bucolic living on a farm back to nature, it's all crapola, Doug. It's terrible, hard work. It used to be. There's more machinery now, but so I made a run for the hills, which translates as California, with a monkey, which is another story altogether. And I got there and I didn't know anybody. One guy I'd known for a few years before, but I was flat broke. Hey, I had a van. That was it. I was broke. And my friend calls me one day and he says, hey, I can maybe get you a job on what was called the call board, working at permission of the union on a Disney on Parade show. But you got to hire on as an electrician. And I said, an electrician? I don't know anything about being an electrician. He says, don't worry about it. Just go see the union steward. So the union steward looks at me. He says, you're here for the electrician job. I said, yeah, but I don't know anything about it. He said, look, you can plug a plug into a socket, right? I said, yeah. He said, okay, you got the job. So that was it. So now I'm working on the Disney on Parade show. And it was just a short gig, and I took some comfort in the fact I had a mattress in my van. And my first day on the job, there's a lot of weird stuff that happened, but one of the weirder ones, so my first day on the job, to open and close the curtains for the show, part of it was motorized and part of it was by hand. And so they pulled the curtains, and in the by hand part of the curtains, there was a big lump that was making all kinds of noises. And I'm standing there by the stage manager. I said, what's that? And he said, oh, that's the creature, they called him, this kid. And he was stoned, and he'd gotten wrapped up in the curtains, and he couldn't get out. It was like a bad movie, right?
Oh, God.
So I unwound and got him out. And it turns out this kid, when you work in those days for the union, if you were a son or a daughter, usually a son of a former union member, you always got work, which was lucky for the creature. He lived with his mom and cut his hair with himself. with the scissors. Kind of gives you an yeah. And this guy, I don't know why we hit it off. I don't know. But anyway, an illustrative story of the guy is one day he came to me. He said, "I've never taken anybody to my favorite bar before, but I'll take you." I thought, well, okay, a night out with the creature. So we go to this bar, and it's a nude bar, right? And I don't frequent those, not of lack of interest, but it's just not something I do. And so out front is this lady with nothing on except a banner that said Miss Nude Universe. And so I'm looking at the creature, and she comes over, and she gives him a hug and talking to him by his first name. And she left, and I said to the creature, how do you know her? And he refused to tell me. So, I mean, that's been a mystery, an enduring mystery to me, how a guy would cut his own hair with a pinking shears. Could be on first name basis with Miss Nude Universe. But anyway, he was badgering me as the show got close to the end to give him my resume, my resume was a true work of creative fiction. I was rather proud of it. But I thought, what's the creature going to be able to do for me? I mean, this guy lives with his mom. I mean, please. But finally I gave it to him, and the show ended, and I was out of work. And I don't remember how long it took me to go completely no food, nothing broke, but it wasn't long after that. And I was sitting, at my apartment, and the landlord had told me to leave, and they were going to cut off the utilities and whatever. And a phone rings, and it's this guy I'd never heard of before who was head of writing and publicity for the University of California. He said, "Hey, I got your resume here, and if you're available, we got an immediate job. We need some help." And I'm looking at the phone. I would have been more amazed if the creature from Alien had popped out of my belly, And I got the job, and it saved me. It saved me, Doug. And through that job, I met the lady who's now my wife, and got into other parts of the media and whatever. And I later found out what happened is the creature took my resume home to his mom's house where he lived and left it on the kitchen table just kind of idly. And his mom, who was in the PR department of the university, thought he'd left it for her. Oh. So she took it and went to a meeting where everybody announced any job openings they had. And there was a job opening, and she said, "I got a resume of a guy who looks like he can do it." And I was saved. I was saved by Mickey Mouse, and it changed my life. So you just never know. You truly don't know.
While you were telling me that story, do you suppose the Miss Nude Universe was the creature's sister?
What? Was what?
Was his sister or something?
I have speculated so much over the years. It could be. He would never tell me. But I got to tell you, that was a shocker.
Okay, the next one I want to hit on, and then you tell me the one about Vegas. The day Johnny Cash hit on my wife.
Yes. Now, I'd met Johnny Cash a few times, but I can't say I knew him. He had a good reputation, though, that his wife, June Carter Cash, that he didn't screw around on her, or at least not enough he was ever caught. But anyway, I love his music. He's gone now. And so at the time, we were doing, this goes back a ways, Doug, but we were doing like commercials for corporations where you'd take a bunch of like still slides and then put music under them like a commercial.
Oh, okay.
And then a narrator would say, "This piece of industrial equipment is blah, blah, greatest thing." And in one of the shows, we used a laser. And a friend of mine saw it, or somebody from the entertainment division at one of the parks in California saw it and asked us if we could do a rock and roll show. And of course, I'd never done anything like that. So what do you think I said? I said, "Sure, sure, we'll do that." And it went over pretty well. And I got a call one day from this guy was the big impresario of country music, still learning, by the way. And he said, "Hey, we're doing the Country Music Awards in Tulsa, and we're thinking that opening the show with a laser show and some pictures of the country Western people would be a good idea, and we'd like to hire you. You ever done that before? And I said, what do you think I said? I said, sure, no problem. We had no idea, right? So when we got there, the production company throwing the show was a very famous singing family, some of which are still active today, so I'll leave it at that. But they'd never produced a show before either. Apparently they'd oversold their capability. They could sing good music, but... So anyway, we arrived there, and at 3 a.m, the managers for the lighting and the sound are having a fist fight on stage, and it was just because nobody had time enough to set up anything, right? And it was going live to a third of the country, Doug, and then tape delay to everybody else. So we were lacking like an hour to set up what we need to set up. So we survived by, in the beginning, I'm looking at this thinking, we're doomed. This is live TV. And my production manager came to me and said, look, we got two choices here. We either fold right now, and we know we'll fail, or we go ahead and run it, and we almost assuredly will fail, but it'll be spectacular. So we went ahead, and they turned the cameras on, and off we went. And we were kind of saved by the fact that we blew off the finale of the show had fireworks. So we blew them all off in the beginning and then started using the lasers through the smoke. And it was a disaster, but not a total bring down the ceiling disaster. And so when it was all over, I thought, well, we just embarrassed ourselves in front of millions of people. So I, of course, went to the backstage bar. And Gloria, my wife, who was getting her PhD at the time, I flew her in by lying about the delights of Tulsa. And she decided she'd stand backstage and watch the rest of the show. So when I came out after having a bit of medicine at the bar, here's this huge crowd. Must have been 200 people, Doug, standing in a respectful circle around a big guy dressed all in black, and my wife, Gloria. So as he's talking John to her, and she's nodding, and he's reaching out to pat her arm, and she's stepping back, and shortly thereafter, he walked away, and everybody else kind of dissipated. And I went up to her, and I said, what did he say to you? And she looked at me, and she just said, oh, just a lot of nonsense. And she has never told me. I have badgered her for years, and she will not say anything other than that. I am convinced that on my deathbed, as I'm rattling my last, she's going to come over and say, now I'll tell you what he said, right? So anyway, she said just a bunch of nonsense and wouldn't say any more. And I said, do you know who that was? And she said, no, who was that? And I said, Johnny Cash. Now, remind you, she's getting her PhD in biochemistry. And she looked at me just sincere as the sunrise and said, who's Johnny Cash? So the notoriety didn't do him any good there. So, that was it. We went home, and he went on to do his thing, and later on, of course, like we all do, passed away. But that was the story. Maybe I'll ask her again after this interview what he said to her.
Well, how old is she that she wouldn't know who Johnny Cash is?
Well, at the time, probably... Well, she was originally from Santiago, Chile, so that's part of it.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
she knew who he was. She probably heard his music, but didn't know him by sight. The rest of us have seen or saw at the time Cash on TV and the specials on his, things in the prison and all the rest of it. But
right, I mean,
honestly, I had no idea who he was. Yeah.
We're kind of running out of time, so tell us the Las Vegas one.
Well, I'll keep it short, but a friend of mine, you know how it is, Doug, the radio now is a whole different ballgame. There aren't little local radio stations like there used to be, and because they've all been bought up. But at the time, local radio was still booming, and it was like a carnival. I mean, the people who owned local radio stations were basically just carny people, and they never paid for anything. Everything was traded. You needed a restaurant meal? Call a restaurant and tell them you'll run ads for them. And go eat for free. Because you weren't going to sell advertising anyway, right? So one day I got a call from an old friend of mine who bought a radio station right in Las Vegas. And it was a day timer, which means that its signal was only during the day, really. At night, it would cut back to where you couldn't hear it. And he called me up and he said, listen, I've had a great idea. Now, I'd been victim to this guy's great ideas before, and I said, what is it? And he said, I just bought a radio station in Las Vegas, and we are going to sell all our advertising for trade, for restaurant meals and show tickets and cars, and we'll live like kings, and you're going to help me. And he then offered a little money. So there I went into Las Vegas, right? So one day he called me into his, and we did live like kings. I mean, we really did. We never paid for anything. But one day he called me in his office. He said, we're out of money. Well, big shocker there, Doug, and he said, we're going to go sell an all-cash advertising contract to Big Jim at Jim's Bail Bonds. Now, this was years ago, Doug, and I was new to Las Vegas, but even I knew that Big Jim was the most notorious loan shark in town. And I said, are you sure that's a good idea? He said, oh, yeah, no problem. He said, I even made a sample commercial for him. So he plays me this commercial, and it was really pretty good. There was a stentorian disc jockey voice, with nice upbeat music in the background, saying if you get into trouble with the law, call Jim's Bail Bonds and all will be well. I thought, well, that's not too bad. Okay. So off we go to Big Jim's, right? And the word was the company was run by Big Jim and his son, Little Jim, who reputedly was mean as a rattlesnake. So we showed up, go in the conference room, and there's two guys, obviously Big Jim and his son. And Little Jim starts out, and he says, I don't even know why we're here. This is the stupidest thing. We're not going to buy anything. And my friend said, oh, no, I even got a sample commercial for you. And the kid says, we don't want to hear Eddie stupid. And Big Jim holds up his hand and he says, play it. So my friend pushes the button and out the commercial plays, right? And instead of the one that he played for me, what came out was my friend's voice backed up by organ music in a minor key. And the narrative read like this. Have you killed your wife? If you have money in the bank here at Jim's Bail Bonds, we don't care. Have you hit your mom with an axe? Here at Big Jim's Bail Bonds, if you have equity in real estate, we don't care. And the kid popped out of his chair like a gopher from an hole, and he was going, you. And he only stopped when he noticed Big Jim was laughing so hard I thought the guy was going to have a heart attack. And he looked up and he said, I got to tell you, that took some sand. Didn't say sand exactly, but he said, that took some grit. It was really stupid, but that took some sand. He said, okay, I'll buy your deal under two conditions. One is that you give me that commercial, and it better be the only copy. He said, the other condition is you never play anything on the air that I haven't approved. And my friend said, yeah. Year contract, Doug, all cash up front.
Wow.
And I always thought, that Big Jim had done that to get that commercial and destroy it. But years later, I heard that he played it at every single party he attended from then on, right up until he went to jail.
It's nice that a guy like that had a sense of humor.
No kidding. Yeah, that was as close as I ever want to get to dealing with those folks.
Wayne, we got to wrap this up. My guest is Wayne McFarland. His book is called Tales from the Day. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. I loved your stories. Thank you very much for sharing those with us.
Well, thank you, Doug.
Best of luck with the book. How's it doing? Is it doing well?
Doing good. I'm really pleased, especially after all the negativity I got in the beginning. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah, well, that's good. Sometimes they don't know what they're talking about.
Yep. We're all kind of making it up as we go.
Wayne, thanks again. And thanks for that tip. We're going to check that out, the Send to Press.
Okay. I think you'll be pleased.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.